Grian is a popular Minecraft YouTuber, well known for his building skill and a key member of the Hermitcraft Server. In this video we'll take a look at some of his builds, and I'll show you how to build like Grian in Minecraft. Let's start by looking at Grian's starter base in Hermitcraft Season 8. The first thing I want to focus on is the landscape around the build. Grian often starts with a single flat plane and builds the base up from there. Terraform the area first and clear it out to get the land exactly the way you want it before you start building. Once the land is ready, you need to make sure you plan the layout of your build. You can use wireframe skeletons to plot out the rough area and get an idea of the overall shape. You're going to want to avoid boxes. Here you can see that the house has several offshoots and rooms all feeding into this central tower. Having different tiers and different levels will immediately set you apart from everyone who just builds a cube. While the scale of the build isn't as important at this stage, since it can always be added to later, it's useful to have an idea of how big it's going to be, as this will inform some later decisions. Next, I want to talk about the structure of a build, so let's take a quick look at the most profitable store in Hermitcraft Season 7, the Barge. The Barge is a great example of building as you go. When it started, the barge consisted of only one small jetty, but over time it grew into this expansive store. As you can see, the main structure consists of these wooden beams, creating a framework for the entire building. Frames, particularly logs, can really help to define the shape of the build and create a solid base with which to work from. When you are building the base up though, it's important to avoid flat surfaces and instead opt for adding more depth. Here, the glass walls are often set back, creating some variation between them and the wooden frame. The barge is also a great example of something Grian is well known for, that being this bell-shaped roof design. It's a simple design that can be added to even smaller builds to give new variety to the top of your Minecraft house. Once you have a main structure, you need to keep detailing in mind. Detailing is something that can be done later after the main bulk of the structure is complete, but having an awareness now could save you a lot of bother later. Let's look again at the starter base we saw earlier. This build is a prime example of effectively using gradients. Arguably the easiest way to instantly improve your build, gradients work by having darker colours at the bottom and lighter colours at the top, drawing your eyes upwards and helping to make it really stand out. When working with gradients, be sure to keep to a colour palette. You can see here that Grian has mainly used greens and greys. These muted colours work very well in a more natural looking environment, and you need to keep the colours consistent. Colours that don't fit the theme will stand out too much, drawing attention away from all your hard work. I want to talk a bit more about colour, but for that we need to head over to Grian's Midnight Alley. Here, his use of colour really takes full effect. Each building has their own colour palette, leading to some fantastic contrast between them. As much as the bright colours can be an eyesore on a smaller scale, in a larger base like this, when combined with a consistent theme, the bright colours add to the character of each building. Theme is the key here. Grian used several reference photos and images as inspiration for this build, and you should do the same. If you wanted to build a temple for example, search up images of temples and use them to work out your colour palettes and textures. Around the alley you can see lots of little details. The barrels, the storefronts, the candles. Grian left these details until last, and for good reason. Adding the finer details to a build is one of the most important steps, but also the most difficult. These finer touches greatly improve the build, but the thing is, people won't necessarily notice when it's done right. If it's done wrong however, people can't help but see it. There's no catch-all tip for these finer details. The best thing you can do is look at others' builds across YouTube, Reddit, Instagram, etc. and see if there's anything that you like and can apply to your own build. Let's think bigger. Building a base is one thing. Building a big base is another. But building a mega base is a mega challenge. In order to understand how to build bigger, we'll take a closer look at Grian's mansion from Hermitcraft Season 7. Now this is a mega base. Building something like this won't happen overnight, but there's several things you can think about now before you start building. This mansion follows what I call the pyramid structure. The towers and walls get taller and taller the closer to the centre they are, drawing your eyes to one focus point in the same way a pyramid does. By applying this structure to your mega build, you not only increase the scale of your base, but you also provide a clear focus point for anyone looking at it. People can't help but look up, and if they're looking up, it really drives home how big your base actually is. See what I mean? From down here the mansion looks absolutely massive. We also need to talk again about gradients, because the way you'll use them here will change. Generally, larger builds look best from afar, while smaller builds look best up close. If you look at the mansion, you can see the gradient uses far fewer colours than the starter base from earlier, and moves much slower across the build. Up close it looks a bit flat, but nobody's looking at the mansion up close. They all stand back and admire it from a distance, where the gradient works at its best. From this distance, we can also take a better look at the details of the mansion. Details can be useful, but also generate noise. Noise is how busy the build looks. The more there is going on, the noisier the build is. If a build is too noisy and is over detailed, it can be overwhelming, and those details blend into a mess. Here, the mansion's details are simple. The fireplace is up top, the red flowers at the bottom, and the large windows. Not every inch of the wall needs to be detailed, and here the details are used to great effect without detracting from the overall look. And for one final tip, Grian's mansion can provide one of the single most important things we can learn. It doesn't matter how much time you put into planning, structuring, building and detailing, if you don't do the back of the base, that's all you'll ever be known for. To prove that these tips aren't just for show, I went ahead and made my own base using everything I've talked about in this video. And here it is. The layout is tiered towards a central point. Wireframe skeletons were used to create the initial framework. The windows help to create depth across the build. The roofs are simple, but at different angles to vary the shape. And there is a consistent gradient across the build, starting with greens at the bottom and greys at the top. This is a really nice build, and would fit well in any survivor world. And there you have it. With this video you can instantly upgrade any base you're working on and build more like Grian. Which of these tips helped you the most? And which Minecraft builders do you want me to cover next? Make sure to comment down below and I'll see you in the next video.